Hello everyone and welcome to another video. It is Friday night, I am ready to go out and I wanted to do a video on fragrance pricing. I recently did a couple videos where I kind of mentioned that I was going to start selling fragrances or selling some of my fragrances that were in my collection, just because I really want to toll down on how many that I actually have in my collection. I will never use this much fragrance, and I just feel it's time to actually start doing it. I'm going to put a new format to a lot of my videos where, I'm just going to purchase the fragrance right out, review it, and then just sell it right afterwards. We'll see how that's actually going to go, but that's kind of in the works. But either way, looking at prices, I began to look and realize, and I'm sorry I didn't respond to everyone's messages yet. I'm still way behind on messages, but I have been reading a couple of them, and I saw that, a lot of people wanted to buy the fragrances that I have in my collection, but on top of that, looking at some boards and some message groups and stuff like that, I realized that people may want insight into how I price fragrances and how I go about doing it. Now, I've had a lot of success buying fragrances just because a lot of people that sell me fragrances always want to keep selling me fragrances because I offer a fair price, basically, based off of it. And I use a really simple equation to do it, basically. And I use the same equation when I'm selling fragrances as opposed to purchasing them. I thought of it and it came up because I saw a couple threads where I saw somebody basically post, I think it was a Tom Ford fragrance, and he was asking actually a very reasonable price. I thought well below market what he could have asked, and people were ragging on him for selling a fragrance for what they thought was too high. And I realized that they were doing some computations in their head where they were just taking, how much it would be if you decanted that fragrance, even though he was selling a full actual bottle. So with that, I wanted to go over and let you know how I actually price fragrances, okay? So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I actually, box, bottle, and cap. Sorry about that. Actually just remembered the other thing that I actually meant to actually mention. Okay, so with that, let's start with the very first thing. There really are about 6 different kind of factors that I take into account when selling a fragrance, right? Right off the top, I'm going to mention all 6. First one is the lemon factor. Second is the initial price. Third, the initial price that someone paid for the fragrance. Third is the current price of the actual fragrance on the market. Fourth is how much is actually left of the actual fragrance, how much juice is left in the actual bottle. Fifth, how rare is the bottle? How rare is the fragrance, basically? And sixth are 3 kind of put into one, and that's, do you have the box, do you have the bottle, and do you have the cap, basically, right? So those are 3 things that I kind of use in order to price my fragrances, okay? So let's start with the first one, lemon factor. So for those of you who don't know, I was an economics major, and one thing that we kind of cover is what's called the theory of uncertainty, and some people call it the lemon factor. What it basically means is, let's take an example of a car, right? If you purchase a car, let's say for $10,000, as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it loses at least 10% of its value. Some people say up to 20, 30% basically of its value. It's usually between 10 and 20% that they say you lose. Much like the same thing, much like a car, I treat fragrances the same way. As soon as you buy that fragrance, except I use about 10% basically, or say about 10%. As soon as you purchase a fragrance, that fragrance is immediately worth 10% less than what the retail value is of that fragrance. So if you purchase a fragrance for $100, let's just be simple and say now it's worth $90. Why? Because the person who's purchasing it, first, A, has no idea, what you could have done to the bottle in that millisecond, or whatever the time is in which, you've had the fragrance. After all, there must be some reason why you're selling the fragrance. And regardless of the reason why you're selling the fragrance, the point is that they still can actually go purchase that same fragrance for the actual retail price, rather than purchasing it from you. After all, the chances of it being defunct or something being wrong with the fragrance is far less in somebody else's mind if they're purchasing it from the actual retailer rather than purchasing it for you. That's why it kind of loses 10% of its value right off the bat. So that's one thing that I apply to it. That's the lemon factor. Number 2, the initial price. Now, I always take initial price into consideration when pricing a fragrance, right? The reason why I do this is very simple. Initial price is kind of ingrained into somebody who purchases a fragrance's head. So let's just say, for example, if you purchased a fragrance for $600 or $700 or $1,000, right? Let's say that $1,000 fragrance is now worth $100 on the actual market. Say what you will, it's still going to hurt that person no matter what, considering that the most that they can get for their fragrance is now $100, right? So given that factor, it's less likely that they're going to truly adhere to kind of like a price structure for it. So given that in mind, based on what someone initially paid for it, I usually kind of bump up the dollars a little bit more of what I'm going to offer them based off of that, how much they initially paid or how much it was initially. Right? Now, in all cases, that's not necessarily true because, you know, you got fleeced basically and paid $600 for a $40 fragrance or whatever the case may be. You know, I'm not really going to have much sympathy for it. I'm still going to stick with the actual market value for it. So it's just one thing to actually consider and keep in mind when I deal with purchasing and selling fragrances, basically. Okay? Second factor, or the third factor, is the current price. Current price is very, very important, right? So why? And it's very simple. Because if a fragrance is, say, currently priced at $60 and you're selling it for $80, there is no, why would I buy it from you, basically? There is no real, if it's the exact same fragrance, there is no reason for me to go buy it from you rather than purchasing it retail for X amount of dollars. And that includes, you know, various sites. Now, I say various sites, I want to put an asterisk on that. The asterisk is because there are certain sites that you can find. For example, a big popular one where this comes across is Creed, right? Now, Creed you can find from a lot of discount retailers, right? And you can find Creed for discount retailers, and you can find Creed obviously from the Creed store. You purchase from the Creed store, you're going to pay at least twice as much than, say, if you purchase it from a store like fragrance.net or something like that, basically, all right? So when you purchase it on that, here's where these are probably the most difficult fragrances for me to price, because I bought almost, I want to say 90% of my Creeds that I bought from the Creed store, right? So I know they're the genuine article. I don't have to do the genuine, you know, the arguing back and forth whether or not the FragranceNet ones are legit or not. And I think the only other ones that I got were from, there was like a Walgreens sale, and so I'm not even sure what to actually put that at, and it was like half off or something like that. But that's one thing to keep in mind, is what I'm trying to say, the initial actual price. Now, again, there is going to be some discrepancy between, you know, discount sites you're going to see and retail sites, and that's going to be between you and the buyer to actually hash out, right? I generally go and try and meet about halfway between the prices that I see there, basically, because, yeah, that's pretty much it. I go about halfway and meet. I don't go fully down in terms of, you know, that starting price to what you can purchase it off FragranceNet for. But I'll go about at least halfway there. So if a Creed fragrance, for example, is costs you $300 on the actual Creed site, $150 on FragranceNet, I may go and say I'm gonna price the fragrance at like $220. That's without taking any other thing into consideration. Basically, is what I'm gonna actually do. And if I sell it, sure. If I don't, not, whatever. But that's definitely one thing to keep in mind, because when you purchase it from FragranceNet, again, there is that controversy that kind of swirls it, whether or not it's real. Creed swears that they're fake fragrances. Other people swear that they're real fragrances. So rather than get into the fight, I know where I got mine from. I know what I'm going to sell it for. All right. How much is left? Now, that's number 4. How much is left for the actual fragrance? This is an obvious no-brainer. Generally, I do a percentage. Like, I'll take off a percentage based off of how much is left, basically. So let's say I value a fragrance at $100. If 50% of it is left, then I'm going to charge it. Then I'm going to price it at 50%, basically. So it's going to be $50, basically. That's a simple way what I do based on percentage left and how I adjust the slider for it. Rarity. This is number 5. This is a very important one. Sorry about the heater, but rarity is a very important thing. Why is it important? Because simply put, if you cannot get the fragrance easily, then the price goes up. It's very simple. If you can't just run out to the store and purchase the fragrance, then it obviously goes up in high demand. One popular fragrance that really comes to mind when I'm thinking about this is Pure Malt. Pure Malt, I've seen the fluctuation of price. When it first, you know, came out, you know, a bunch of people bought it up for retail price, then they no longer offered it. I saw Pure Malt balloon up to like $300 for a bottle of Pure Malt. So until Terry Mugler started re-releasing it again, and now it's driven the price back down to, it's less than the actual retail cost, or even around retail costs, to get a bottle of Pure Malt, okay? So I've seen that. If it's rare, if you can't get it anywhere, the price is going to go up. And it depends on what it is and how expensive it is that the price actually goes up for it. I've seen it go up, you know, a pretty decent amount. When you look at some rare fragrances out there, you're going to pay a pretty good buck for them. So just keep that in mind when dealing with it. And the final one that I kind of take into account is the box, bottle, and cap. I generally hold the two most things in this theme are the bottle and the cap for it. As long as I have that, I'm perfectly fine. But I'm still going to give a discount if there is no box for it. And I tend to throw away all my boxes for designer. I tend to keep my niche boxes just because they're usually a little bit better done. They're not just, you know, a piece of paper or whatever. But that's one thing to keep in mind. You know, if you have the bottle for it, obviously you're going to pay a little bit more. If you have the cap for it, you're going to pay a little bit more. And if you have the box for it, you're still going to, you know, pay a little bit more, and you're going to get back to the true price basically for it. So those are things I keep that I do to keep in mind. So I kind of wanted to present you with 3 examples of how I would price a fragrance and price a fragrance. Okay. So don't quote me on these numbers here yet, but I'm just going to kind of use general numbers that I've seen around. All right. So the first fragrance, let's start with, which was, by the way, my scent of the night that I'm going out with, and that is Chambre Noir. All right. Chambre Noir is priced at, I think it's like $145 or something like that. $145 for a 50 milliliter. Right. And this is the 50 milliliter. That's the price we're working with. Right. So first thing, let's go off the checklist. Lemon factor, theory of whatever. Right. So basically, $145, assuming that this bottle is full, I'm probably going to charge around like $125-ish for it right off the bat. Yeah, you know what? I should probably, you know what? Let me do this. Sorry, I'm doing this, but I can actually just do the calculation real time for this. So let's do it. So 145. I'm just going to say to tack it off. So 145. Let's get 90% of 145, and that is $130.50 basically. So $130 is what the fragrance is worth right off the bat, right? And least in my mind. Then I take, what would I pay for it? Well, this one I actually paid half price for this one just because I met the parfumé of Chambre Noir, and I went through and basically I purchased it off of her, and it was kind of like a test type of thing going through, but I did end up getting this for half price. So I actually paid $70 for this one, not $145. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm still not going to take off any for it because you can't get it for $70 no matter how hard you try or anything like that, and doesn't influence anything else. So scratch that one off on this one. Current price. What is the current price of this one? It's $145. Hasn't gone down. If you look at it, the places that you can get it are very sparse, and the ones for the 50 milliliter are actually sold out. They're actually on back order, and you have to wait till like, I think it was like February or March or something like that to get 50 milliliter from the store for this one. So in terms of current price, it's there, and in terms of rarity, it is on a little bit on the rare side. So we're still at 130 here. How much is left? So if you look on the back of this, you'll see it's about, I want to say 60 to 70% is left of this fragrance. So given that 70% is left of this fragrance, I'm just going to go with 70, let's say, or let's just say 65 times 65%. Now we're down to about $85, right? So we're down to about $85. Does it have the box, bottle, and cap? Yes, it has the box, bottle, and cap for it. So we're looking for this fragrance, or at least I'm looking for this fragrance around $85, $90 is what I would be selling it if I was selling it, basically. Sorry, not 95. 85 would be roundup price, and then I would charge like $5 for shipping, or whatever the case may be. And I'd probably knock that down based off of how many bottles I'm actually selling to the person. So this one would go for about $85, okay, from 145. That's the price in my mind. Let's take a look at another one. Take a look at Yupon, right? This fragrance retailed for around, let's start with the fat. Retailed this fragrance, this was a 2.5, 75 milliliter. I believe it retailed for around 60 or something. Let's just go with 60. This was $60, right? So right off the bat, it loses 10%. What is that? 6 off. So 54. So now it's like $54, right? So $54 is what this fragrance is worth. If we look at the current price, on the other hand, you can buy if you look on fragrance.net or some other sites like that for, I think it was around like 25 or something like that. Let's just say 25. And I just want to use 25 just for the heck of it in this. Now this one is one where I will use the fragrance net price because this is not a rare fragrance. You can find this everywhere. Whether or not they're real or fake, that's another question entirely. But this one, I purchased off a person, and I'm not entirely sure if it, like came directly from a retail store or anything like that. So I'm going to use the fragrance net price for this one. So I'm going to basically start off at 25 and knock it down from there. So I'm going to reset it, start off at 25. Just to do 25, 90% of 25, and we're talking about like $22 basically. $22 for this one. How much is left? Well, it's at damn near full. So I'm just gonna knock off a little bit, like $2 for the fact that it's kind of used off of it. $20 right now is what this is. It's not rare at all. That's not gonna take away anything from it. So it has the bottle, it has the cap, does not have the box. So what am I probably going to charge for this fragrance? I'm probably going to charge anywhere between $15 and like $20. So I'd probably settle on like $17 for this fragrance. Okay, that's Yop Homme. Let's go to a more expensive example. Let's take Xerjoff's Richwood. Xerjoff's Richwood sells for, I think it was around, for the 100 milliliter, it was around like $600. Okay. Lemon Factor, again, 600 off. That's immediately 60 down. We're talking about $540 for the bottle. That was full. Initial price for it, I actually purchased this one off of, I took part in a split, purchased off, and basically went through that way. So to me, the price doesn't really matter because the store just came directly from Xerjoff, basically, and we came from like New York and went from there, basically. So as far as current price go, we're going by the current price. So we're still saying about $540, right? Now, how much is left of this fragrance? Well, if you look at it, it's about half, or I would say a little bit under half, just because the top kind of curves up a little bit more. So let's say about 45%, right? All right, 45%. So we take 540, multiply it, 45%. And now we're looking at $243 for what I'm looking at this fragrance for. Rarity, you can buy it off the Xerjoff site, but you're not going to find it on any discount sites, really. So we're still looking at $240 or $243 to be specific for this. It has the box, it has the bottle, it has the cap. So I'm probably going to be looking for, I would probably just because it's so expensive, I would probably be looking to knock a little bit off more, and I would probably look for this around like $220, right? $600 fragrance, $220 basically. And that's kind of how I do my prices for it, okay? So just keep that in mind, because I'm going to be putting out some videos earlier where I start selling my fragrances, and that's where the prices are coming from. They're sort of negotiable, but not really. You can see there's kind of a science behind why I offer them at various prices, okay? So if you have any questions whatsoever, let me know how you come up with these with your fragrance prices. Let me know, do you think my prices are fair? Do you think the way that I do my prices are fair? Is there anything else I should kind of take into consideration? I'm always curious of these kind of things, so let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below, send me a message, do whatever you gotta do. I will get back to everyone's messages, so don't worry about that. Thank you, take care of yourselves, and have a great day.